Hello and welcome back. Welcome to our latest episode in our new series on inspiring leadership. And thank you also for the terrific feedback that you've sent in. It is very much appreciated and it's very welcome. The purpose of these podcasts, as you'll know by now, is quite simply to learn from the best. We want to understand what makes a great business leader. How do they focus? How do they get people to follow their vision? How do they motivate? How do they deal with failure? And how can they use their influence for the good of all of us? Albert Schweitzer said, "Example is not the main thing in influencing others, it is the only thing. We will learn from experiences, good and bad, and that will always be our best teacher. There's always something to learn. So why invent pastry when we can use our grandmother's recipes?" For this episode of Inspiring Leadership, I've come to the stunning setting of Oxford University, the world's leading university, and the spiritual home of so many of our inspiring leaders, from sports to business to presidents and prime ministers. Since the inception of gunnercooke, we've held our annual symposium here every year to celebrate our culture and, perhaps more importantly, to learn from great speakers. Can there be anywhere better to do just that than in this great seat of learning? Our very special guest in front of our live audience is psychologist and former NBA basketball player John Amaechi. John Amaechi's journey to greatness began in a single-parent family in Stockport. Despite not touching a basketball until the age of 17, his rise to the top was nothing short of meteoric. High school standout, Division I college ball, the first undrafted player to start their first NBA game. Known for his intelligence and versatility on the court, he made headlines in 2000 when he turned down a $17 million offer to play for one of the most dominant teams in NBA history. Ever a man of integrity, John renewed his commitment to the Orlando Magic. "I think the Magic needs me more than the Lakers," he told reporters. John was also destined to be more than a basketball player. He was a man with a message. In 2007, John shattered the silence and became the first openly gay professional basketball player. John's openness and his honesty was inspiring, transcending sport and society. John earned a PhD in psychology and became an author, a speaker, and a social activist, receiving an OBE for his services to sport and the voluntary sector. He used his platform to promote equality, inclusion, and diversity. He spoke about white privilege. In 2020, against the backdrop of the Black Lives Matter movement, millions of people around the world heard his message of understanding. John Amaechi is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the importance of fighting for what you believe in. We talk about champions. John Amaechi redefined the word. I'm about to go inside this wonderful theatre at the Syed Business School to welcome on stage and chat with our next guest. An audience of 300 gunnercooke lawyers and operating partners are eagerly awaiting to hear and learn from what he has to say. Please welcome to the stage, John Amaechi. Wow, John, I don't know where to start. So much in there, it's fantastic. But I think we should start where every interviewer should start, and I think we should start with your mum.
Agreed.
Because I've read The Promise of Giants. Can't wait to read your new book, which is just out. But she is probably one of the most amazing people that I've come across. To have her as a mum must be fantastic. So I want to start with the story when you were a young boy in Heaton Moor, Stockport. Actually, my wife comes from Heaton Moor, Stockport.
We were just talking before, yeah.
So you're not the only good thing to come out of there, are you?
Exactly right. Brownie points earned.
And you sit down and tell your mum that you want to go to university in the US and you want to play in the NBA. And I want to then talk about her reaction. So I just wondered if we could start by you reading just a few lines to introduce that, and we can talk about it. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. Let me just caveat this by saying I spent the last 2 weeks reading the audiobook for the next book. If there's anything that teaches you that you can be quite good at writing words and absolutely crap at reading your words, so just bear with, right? Would you recognize your soul in the dark? Would I recognize my soul in the dark? What a thing to hear. I'd spent days orchestrating this moment and how it had laid bare my ambitions, supported by a well-reasoned plan. And she asks about my soul in the dark. What does that have to do with anything? And aren't we atheists anyway? I'd never been so frustrated with her, but she proceeded before I could reply. People who want to do ordinary things, she said, they're like sticks in the river. They get thrown in at the top, and they may get stuck for a while in some reeds, or even temporarily washed to the banks, but eventually, all things being equal, they'll make their way to the sea. You've chosen an extraordinary destination, and as such, you can't rely on chance or fate to wash you there. People who want to do extraordinary things, they need to be armed with full knowledge of who they are. Most people can't describe their true selves in enough detail that they would recognize themselves without their physical reflection. Would you recognize your soul in the dark? Now she had my attention. I moved to her bedside and listened, enraptured, as she told me about the power and indeed the necessity of introspection for those who plan to achieve the unconventional and extraordinary. Describe yourself to me, she said when she was done. Who are you? That question should have been easy enough for a smart kid like me. I prided myself on my intellect and my studies. I spent hours lost in books and my own thoughts, and yet I struggled to find a meaningful reply to Mum's question. I resorted to listing the most basic physical and biological descriptors: black, tall, British, student, son, older brother. But that wasn't what she was looking for. Let's take away all that, she said. What happens if you can't use those things?
What, 30, 40 years of reflection now? What do you think she was saying to you? What was the message that she was giving you at the time?
I suppose I've distilled it to this idea that we do ourselves a disservice in education, and sometimes as parents even, we do it to our children, where we relentlessly ask our children what they want to do. In schools, they are funneled, certainly in the United Kingdom, they are funneled into a narrow set of studies at 16, and it's based on what you're going to do when you're 25, which is such an absurd thing in a time like now when there's no point in considering what you might do at 25. That job might not exist. And so I think what she was trying to say is that in order to do amazing things, and now I think increasingly even to do mundane things, a real knowledge of the things about you that'll get in the way is important. I am intrinsically incredibly lazy. Nobody believes me when I say this because they say, oh, you did that and you did this. I'm lazy. You give me a chance to take the easy option, absolutely, I will take that, right? There's just no doubt about it. And until I realized that, because it's not, fat kids from Stockport who like, Greg's steak slices. That is not the answer, right, for playing in the NBA or a professional league of any description. But if you know you're lazy, if you know your first impulse when asked, oh, would you like to practice some more, is no thanks, then you can do stuff about it. You can actually set your life up logistically. Even now, my diary is set up in a way that, because whilst I'm not self-motivated in the way that many believe me to be, I'm obedient. So if Helen puts in my diary, you're going to do this task, I'll do it. I'm told to. It's the same thing with the book. Somebody on my team said, hey, it's now been 3 years since the last book, about time. I was like, all right. And did nothing about it until it appeared in my diary, start writing book. I was like, okay. That was December the 20th of last year. Start writing book. And then they sent me to, actually not far from here, there's a place called Estelle Manor, very bougie. And they sent me there to sit in a log cabin and start writing. And that's the reason the book got written, because I was just told to. But it's all because I know that if I'm left to my own devices, I'll read a book and I'll eat a pie.
But Wasn't the answer I was expecting that, actually, John. But I do want to just challenge you on one thing, though, because you say, and I read it in the book as well, you say you're inherently lazy. And I had to check if it was a spelling mistake, because you then go on to say, and you can tell me it's a spelling mistake now, right, that you sent 3,000 letters to American high schools seeking a place.
Yes.
God only knows what would have happened if you hadn't been so lazy.
So I'm also, I mean, this is the thing about knowing yourself. I'm also inherently like contra-suggestive. Some of you will have children or colleagues who are that too. You tell them they can't do something, instantly they will do it. And somebody told me that it was impossible for a fat 17-year-old from Stockport to play in the NBA. And I was like, all right then. And it was my mum who said, right, this is what we'll do. We went on a big trip. We went on the coach to London. We found this place called the Fulbright Commission. I don't know if it's still there, but it's this organization, and they had books full of high schools, and we just went through, and we started off trying to be diligent. We realized there's a lot of high schools in America and a lot of states. I thought America was Knight Rider in the A-Team. That was what I thought America was. And so eventually we just started flipping, like, here, take 3 pages, pen in, right, that's the address, that's the name, sent it, dear coach, my name's John Amaechi, I'm 6'8", I was at the time, probably am again now, 6'8", black and British, and I want to play basketball on your team. And this was before like word processors, and so this was just handwritten stuff. I just wrote them, my mum paid for them to be sent, and off they went. I got 3 replies. 2 of them were no.
But there is a message there, isn't there? There is a message there about persistence, isn't it? And I think really elite performers persist, don't they?
Yeah.
A lot of people just give up at the first hurdle.
Yeah.
But you had something in you that just stopped, that meant that you were going to go on until you achieved it.
The thing is, so the new book is called It's Not Magic, and I'm now very sensitized to the idea that when people say nice things about me that appeal, I know that they're probably wrong. Because it's not my persistence, it's a persistence that there isn't anybody in this room hasn't demonstrated in one domain or another. My niece, one of my nieces has got profound learning difficulties, and I watch as my sister is unrelentingly persistent in the pursuit of enabling a life for her in the future that's going to be more than what perhaps our school systems and our SEND systems imagine for her. And so if we went around the room right now, although you may not have an example in sport or in psychology or in academia, you'll have an example of where your persistence is that relentless. To me, for any of you to achieve what you've done, you have demonstrated the thing that I talk about a lot. It's not just persistence per se, because there's kind of sexy persistence when you're doing something that's interesting and fun and people are like, ooh, that's amazing. That's a lot easier. The real thing that marks out excellence to me are people who can tolerate mundanity. Because that's what the 3,000 letters was. It was an exercise in RSI and mundanity, right? It just was that. Can I keep my handwriting good? Because you never know if this is the letter that they'll look at and say no because they can't read everything in it. And it's that execution over time with tasks that are dull is, to me, always a marker of someone remarkable.
Yeah. I could talk about your career for the rest of this podcast, but I do want to get onto some other issues as well. But I just want to kind of finish this bit by just following on from that. What was the secret to your success as a professional sportsman? Clearly, persistence was one of them, but you talk a lot about goal setting as well. Could you just expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I decided that I think part of it is the audaciousness, the mixture of boldness and vulnerability that I talk about in Promises Giants. This idea that if you pick a goal that's not quite audacious enough to be slightly frightening, it becomes easy to ignore. Like when you say you're going to lose a bit of weight for the summer, you're not going to, right? You're just not going to. It's not enough to do it for you. It's not compelling enough. And there's no way that Greg's versus losing a bit of weight for the summer, there's an easy winner there, right? I'm not sponsored by Greg's, I just love it. But there's an easy winner, and so to me there's a boldness to saying, I'm going to do something that no one else at that point has done. But in order to do that, every day I thought, right, if I want to be in the NBA in, I thought 10 years' time, it ended up being 6 years from the day I picked up a basketball. But if I want to be in the NBA in 6 years, what needs to be true 5 years from now? What needs to be true 4? And then 3.5 and 3, and 2.5 and 2, and then a quarter until 1 every quarter. And then what do I have to do today? What do I have to do today differently than I might otherwise do if that's the thing I'm going for? And I think if that level of planning is available to everybody, we can all say, what do I want to do? I'm going to create, there's this amazing concept in science fiction. Anybody here a nerd or a geek? Willing to admit it? Good, right? So if you've ever read science fiction, the one thing that happens in science fiction, I think it's what makes it so compelling to so many people, is that they do something called a future history, which is when an author writes about the future in such a vivid and compelling way that you think, this woman, this man has been to the future and is now telling me about what they saw. Because we all know bad sci-fi. It's like, yeah, there's a pill, you take the pill, it's food, and there's a car, it flies. That's not it. These are people who describe the future in such a way that it's like they've been there and seen it, and now they're just telling me about a memory. And that's the best kind of goal setting. Not just, I want to have X revenue. It's not that these things aren't important, but they don't pull you through the tough times. They don't drag you through the mundanity. We know, lots of people have known this. Martin Luther King, one of his most famous speeches is the I Have a Dream speech, it's called, right? And he doesn't say to the then American, maybe now American government, it'd be really nice if we could use the same water fountains as you. It'd be great if the Alsatians didn't bite us as we were sat at lunch counters. Instead, he talked about a world where white boys and black boys could play together. And suddenly there's an image in your head that makes you realize that it's not such a frightening convention. It's not such a frightening thing to imagine. The future history is a powerful draw, and it helps even lazy people achieve remarkable things.
Yeah. One of the things you must have come across is that 16-year-old, when everybody in the room will have faced it, is that imposter syndrome. So, and I can't imagine the gap going from the streets of Stockport to telling everyone in the US that you were going to go and play in the NBA. That must have been just immense like that. How did you cope with that? How did you get the belief to convince people that you were going to do it, and convince yourself then?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest to you that imposter phenomena, I'll tell you something that was told to me. I went to a conference, must have been 12 years ago, British Psychological Society conferences in Birmingham. And I went to this and I was just trying to go to everything. I love these things because you can just find, you can walk into a room, it's interesting, it's not interesting, you walk out, you find another room. And I walked into the end of this lecturer's presentation, a lecturer from Leeds, and she said, never forget that imposter phenomena is how you're supposed to feel. It is the way that the world has set itself up to gatekeep access to success, because the truth is that not everybody feels imposter syndrome. Some of you in this room know you're supposed to, and you're supposed to because of your gender, you're supposed to because of your socioeconomic background when you grew up, you're supposed to because of your accent. You're supposed to feel like you don't belong in these spaces. And other people don't suffer that because they've been groomed to believe that they absolutely are supposed to be here. And so imposter phenomena is only ameliorated to me by really looking at yourself and being able to say, audit really carefully the stuff you're good at in a really granular and objective way. We do this exercise, it's in the new book, called 10 Brilliant Things About Me. Anytime I do it in public, horror ensues, right? Because I look at somebody and I say to them, don't worry, I won't do it to you right now. I look at them and I say, tell me 10 brilliant things about you. Here's the rules. It has to be granular. That means detailed. It has to be objective. That means Not kind of, well, some people say, well, and then it can't have any of those things that are diminishing words that we use. Well, I'm quite good. Yeah, sometimes. None of that bollocks. It has to be objective and granular and real and factual. And it's amazing that I sit with people, really accomplished people, and there's nothing. And then I say, well, give me a couple of things that you need to work on. And I'm not encouraging anybody to be arrogant, but that's not the deficit for most people. The deficit is you can't access the stuff that you're legitimately brilliant at. And nobody's saying that you should just say, well, I'm very clever. Because that is irritating, right, to everybody. But if you can describe the way that you're clever, that can be really useful for the people around you. I tell people all the time that when I listen to people, it's like Tetris is happening in my head. Luckily, I know we have enough people of a certain age in this audience that you'll know what that is. I said that to my graduate students the other day. They were like, what? Anyway. But it's like Tetris. So as people talk, even when it's a sector I'm not familiar with or a topic that I'm not sure about, as long as I'm listening intently and being really present, it's like I'm not doing the turning, but the pieces are moving. And then a last piece comes that's the piece you're waiting for. And it's like, I got it. And that's something that my brain does with no real work. I don't think it's a product of my education. It's just genetic dumb luck. But it is an accurate way of describing. And now that you know that, that might be, if we were doing some coaching, that might be like, oh, I can see a way that would be useful for me. So it's not just self-serving, it helps everybody around you. And that's how you defeat the imposter phenomena. Yeah. Know what you're great at objectively in the same way and with the same energy that you devote to knowing what's wrong with you.
Excellent, excellent. Just to move it on a little bit, there is no doubt as well that you have faced a number of obstacles in your life at various stages. And you talk a lot and you write a lot about race and unconscious bias. Mm-hmm. And I think you even, I love in the book, in The Promise of Giants, where you even talk about how your mother changed your name to avoid bias, avoid that unconscious bias. Could you tell us more about that unconscious bias, how it happens, how we don't even know it's happening, and how we should address it?
Yes. There's two parts to this. One is this, bias is real, and bias is enough, right? So I don't call it unconscious bias, because even as a psychologist, I recognize that I know in limited extents what the unconscious is. And anybody who tells you they understand what the unconscious is lying to you and probably trying to sell you a program for $5.99 a month, right? So bias is enough. So if you just embrace the fact that we're all biased, and it's not positive or negative until it manifests with other people, and then it's problematic. So my name is not John. My mother changed it when I moved from primary school to secondary school. My name is John Amaechi. It means the future is not set. At least part of it does. It's rather poetic and lovely, and every time I say that, I feel a little sad, like something is lost. But John is accessible, and I'm already frightening enough to most people without adding that many syllables. But the reality is that she changed it for a very smart reason, even if it lost something in translation. And that is the fact that when my CV passes through, people think that Amaechi, when they read it, is Italian. So they think it's Amici. And they think Italians are all white. And so John Amaechi is a white Italian. Professor John Amaechi is a learned white Italian. Professor John Amaechi OBE is a learned and honored white Italian, and my CV sails through. And then I show up and they are somewhat surprised. But that's why it changes, and I know that can feel to some of you a bit spiky. But this is the reality, and not just, there's a northern component here, right? In a city that probably doesn't, many people here don't even know a north exists, right? So there is an inherent bias there. A northern accent takes about 10 points off your IQ when speaking to somebody not with a northern accent. We know it's not true. We know it's nonsense, but it's a reality. If I were to say some words to you, let's see if I can think of them now from a piece of research that we did. Oh, what are they? Weak, emotional, gossip, bossy, annoying. Weak, emotional, gossip, bossy, annoying. What group of people is that?
Women.
Yeah, you know, right? We know that when we give that list, when you say weak and emotional, about 80% of people, men, women, those on the spectrum in between, know that you're talking about a woman. We all know in this room that that is cruel and dangerous for women. We know that the idea that being seen as weak and emotional is an inherent disenabler of success in the workplace. Being seen as bossy and annoying is something that's a constituent part of the horrors of abuse that women face at the hands of men. And yet we all know it. This is the nature of bias. It is a cloud that we are... Again, some of you are old enough to remember back in the day when you'd go out to a pub or a bar or a nightclub or something, and you'd come back and your clothes would have to be instantly binned, right? Saturated with the smoke from people smoking, right? And you'd wake up the next morning and even your skin, and you'd meet somebody and they'd be like, oh, you're a smoker. They'd assume because you were saturated in that cloud that you were also of that number. And that's the problem. We live in a world where these clouds exist. For black people, criminal, aggressive, stupid, ignorant, athletic, dangerous. It's the reality of the world we live in. The danger of bias isn't that it exists, it's that good people like to pretend they're not subject to it. And by pretending you're not subject to it, you will manifest it. We can't run away from these things that we assume. I talk in the new book about an experience I had with a couple of baristas where my bias was clearly exposed because I was really impressed by something I heard from them. And I realized part of my being impressed was the fact that I expected absolutely nothing because they were baristas. Me, a person who really looks at humans for the capacity to do remarkable stuff. And I'd assumed that they had nothing to offer. It was really embarrassing to address, but it's changed the way I look at people now and improved me because of it. Whereas if I pretend it was an aberration, I'm prone to do it again.
But, and I think linked to that, John, you do talk, we can change. We can change. And I know you believe in that. And you talk a lot about growth mindset. So I think it starts, doesn't it, by recognizing what you said. And you're right. I think, sometimes we're shocked by our own, I know you don't like the word unconscious bias, but about our own bias. But having a growth mindset and learning from it and changing, how can we do that? What does a growth mindset mean to you?
So this is Carol Dweck's work, and she's pretty remarkable. I think the thing for me is an acknowledgement of the unfinished nature of us as people, an acknowledgement that even if we are pretty brilliant, and I know some of you are sat there saying, I'm pretty brilliant, right? Because I do it. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty good. An acknowledgement that even though we're pretty brilliant, there's this almost limitless advancement that we can make on top of that in one direction or another, one dimension or another. And then declaring that you're going to do something about that, right? So I've been really interested in finding things that I just didn't know about. I've been really, and again, I wrote about this in the new book, there's a bunch of, TikTok, right? I know, right? I'm too old for TikTok. I don't care, I'm on it. And I've got a channel on it. And I really like it because when I'm really down and upset, there appear to be a raft of videos about cats and dogs being overly friendly with each other and cuddling, which I like. And then I've also found myself in the weird end of like Native American TikTok, fascinating, didn't know anything about it, ridiculous that I didn't know anything about it, having lived in America and in Arizona of all places for 15 years. I'm on linguistics TikTok. These people who know about words and where they come from and how they've derived and all that. I learned about this thing called phatic expressions. Anybody know phatic expressions? A form of phatic expression, this is language that's used to convey other messages. So small talk is a form of phatic expression because it's how we tell each other that we're normal. I know that many of you hate small talk, but it is how we tell each other we're normal. If I met any one of you as strangers and you said, hey, how you doing? And I said, oh my God, first time we met, oh my God, my life's falling apart. It's not that you wouldn't be empathetic, but you would know I'm not normal, right? And it's not because the situation is not something you should be, warm about. It's just the convention is you ask me how I am as a stranger and I say, fine, good, or the professional one, oh, I'm so busy. Because then you know I'm accomplished, right? And that's learned from TikTok. That was a 60-second video that sent me down a rabbit hole for 3 weeks. I'm telling you, as long as you're open to the idea that you're not the finished product, the richness that comes your way is brilliant. And then the other thing is the idea that don't imagine that learning is always going to be formal. So even TikTok has a formality to it, right? I'm going to TikTok in order to try and see something. And then other times you'll just meet people or you'll witness things that's like, oh, there's something in that. For me, it's often stories. There's a story in that I can tell, or a message or a learning that I can grasp from it. You're not the finished product. And why would you want to be? How boring.
Great. I want to turn to culture. We talk a lot about culture in our organisation. You write a lot about culture. Every organisation has a culture. Most companies don't design it. It just kind of happens. It's just there. We think about our culture quite a lot. But it is an overused word to some extent. And when you ask people to define it or leaders to define it, they quite often can't. How do you define culture?
So the kind of pithy one-liner I have, there's a little asterisk next to it, which I'll talk about in a second, but the pithy one-liner is that culture is defined by the worst behavior tolerated. And that's what I say. I walk into lots of places and I look at the behaviors and I think the stuff that people let go that's not quite normal. So there's a company I work with where one of the very senior people, he punctuates his sentences with banging his fist on the table. Now, instantly weird, right? I've told him this, instantly weird. And now, because he does it, and it's weird, right? It's like, so, I just want to tell you that I really think you've done a great job today. Weird, right? The messages are all mixed up. I don't know what's happening. But now, lots of other people, mostly men, have taken it upon themselves to do the same thing. So you've got this culture where people bang on tables all the time. And it's weird, but it does define the place because it's loud and it's a form of, and again, this is not my work, but there's this brilliant discourse around something called, it's just gone from my head. Discursive violence. The idea that violence isn't always physical. Sometimes it's a part of your communication pattern, whether it be volume, tone, or the accompanying thumps. And the problem with discursive violence is that it inevitably, as we've seen recently, leads to physical violence of some sort or some kind of another in workplaces or in organizations or society. And so for me, watching what people allow and let go is important, but also recognizing that most people, if there is something out there that has 500 different definitions, you can't measure it in the way that you're trying to, scientifically speaking. Same thing with things like charisma. Business schools, I work in a business school too, but they're big on talking about charisma, and there's about 300 to 400 different definitions of it in the research literature, which means it's bollocks. Charisma is best described, if you want a real definition of it, is that the real definition of it is it's a description for men, and almost solely men. When was the last time you heard a woman called charismatic? It's a description for men who are kind of dicks, but also very successful. And so we've got to be careful with culture as well, right? We've got to be careful with culture because it can often end up being whatever you want it to be. And in the best possible way, it'll end up being warm and running through the place like nectar. And in other places, it'll be truly corrosive.
Yeah. Linked to that, we talk as well in our organisation a lot about coaching, using coaches to help people. And we're developing we're stepping up and scaling up our coaching programs considerably. You've had coaching from every side. You're a coach. You've had it in your sports career. I presume you really believe in it. Just sell us the virtues of coaching, John.
Yeah. What are you doing? If you don't have a coach, what are you doing? If you listen, I know I'm talking to a privileged group of people. You can afford a coach, get a coach. Stop it. Why would you do this alone? Why would you exist in a world where, because you're so senior, many people won't tell you the stuff they spot? This is research by Tasha Eurich. She's brilliant. She talks about the fact that the problem with seniority, or one of the challenges with seniority, is the idea that the more senior you are, the less good at knowing how well you know yourself you are. You literally get worse at knowing how well you know yourself, because people don't tell you the things that you might know or might need to know. And a coach is there to reflect back, oh, really interesting turn of phrase you've been using today. Are you sure, is that the impact you want to make on other people? It's just a great system of checks and balances. It's a great system of the stuff that you end up doing routinely, that you've gone nose blind to, because it's just the way you do it, the way you always start meetings a certain way, or the way you always introduce yourself to a client a certain way, and just having someone who says, are you sure about that? Because to me that feels like this. Stop it. Stop trying to do it alone. I don't know who started this alpha bullshit myth that it's all about doing it alone. Isolated leaders are invariably toxic. What keeps us in check, and I'm wary of the word family because, I don't tend to fire my family members, but isolated leaders do harm. Leaders who are properly, authentically connected to others, who are unafraid to give them thoughtful, direct feedback, that's where magic happens, even if it's not magic.
And just talking about feedback though, because I think that's really interesting as well, because the wrong feedback can be damaging. If you're kind of doing one-to-ones or appraisals, things like that, and you approach it the wrong way. So is there an art in giving feedback?
I think it's more dull than that, actually. There's a script for giving feedback, right? There's some things to remember. We have this feedback mechanism that's in the Promises of Giants that talks about things like feedback is never cruel. I don't care what there's like at least now 30 people who've gone, The feedback is never cruel. That does not mean feedback won't hurt. It hurts to be told that the pie you've just made is not good. But it's better to know than make it again and have people be in pain and then start talking about your bad pies, right? But feedback doesn't have to be cruel. You don't have to tell them, you're awful. What a terrible person you are for making this thing. You can do it in a way that's thoughtful and considered and objective rather than personalized. And that's a good ground rule for feedback. But the other part is there are some techniques. Permissioning your feedback makes it more likely to be well received and more likely for people to act on it. Even if you're a senior person, because you assume as a senior person, if I tell you this as a junior person, you'll just do it. Sure, but if you really want to make it work, you say, you couch it, and not in a kind of sandwich way for feedback, because that's always nonsense, but it's like, I recognize that you're really trying to deliver X for me. I can see that you're trying to do this. I can see something that's getting in the way. Can I tell you about it? It's amazing as a tool, because whether it's a peer or a junior person, that's going to ring in their head like a Rick Astley song. It's just never going to go away, right? It's in your head right now. And so eventually they're just going to they want to expunge it. And so they'll ask, can you tell me? And then you do the courtesy of not waffling and not being generic. Yeah, sometimes in meetings, you don't start them the best way. There's not feedback. It's just fire. It's just frustration. Why are you doing that to people? I've noticed at the start of meetings, you rush in without even the slightest pleasantries. People find it abrupt. So there's the other part that you do. You connect what people are doing with the impact it has. People find it really abrupt. I know that you're a personable person, but you've got people in that room who are just terrified because you come in, you start, and there's no human connection. You really give a proper description. And then you collaborate. You say, hey, I've had this same problem. I know you want to get on it. Maybe we could try this. Pick 2 people in the room to just say, hey, how you doing? Hope you're well. Yeah, I saw you did X the other day. Pick something. And that's the strategy for feedback. It's just not hard, which is why it's so unconscionable that so many of us are so bad at it. Because I'm suspicious of contextual stupidity. I'm suspicious of it. I don't believe in it. My team and I, we worked with some of the scientists at CERN, right? The Large Hadron Collider. And, there's literal cutting-edge particle physics going on there. So color me confused when I meet a man who doesn't realize that you're not supposed to massage the shoulders of the woman in front of you. So you can do Higgs boson over here, but in 2020, you don't realize you can't massage the shoulders of a woman. How did you go from being that smart to that stupid? I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. So apply yourselves in those areas and get a coach.
But it is interesting as well, isn't it? Because I guess there's a difference. When you actually coming back to coaching, difference between sports coaches and coaching that you do now. Is that what I get? Am I right that sports coaching was much more about pushing people, driving you to the limits? I can't imagine people being really nice when they did coaching. It was, in your face, do it.
There were definitely, I can hear the voices and see the faces of some of those kinds of coaches, but they are vanishingly small numbers now. And they aren't successful. Because if I'm getting paid 8 million quid a year and you're yelling at me, I'm just going to go, virtual wall, beep. I'm just going to ignore you. But the difference, I've had really personable coaches. It's not that they've been incredibly robust. Their standards have been unbelievably high. But what they've done that's different, I think, the biggest difference between sports coaching and work coaching is its cadence. So what you often try and do is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have these 10 people that work with me, and I'm going to try and remember everything they've done for the last 6 months. And then I'm going to tell them in a 45-minute slot. Right? Not real. Whereas I would play a game, or a practice even, and I would do really, really well, because that's the other thing we do. We don't give feedback when people do really, really well. And they'd say, this was brilliant, this was brilliant. And then somebody would say, but your elbow was like that much wrong. And at first it was like, excuse me, I've just kicked everyone's ass here. But this was the difference between staying as I was and growing. But it's every practice, every day. I love this idea of micro feedback, right? Giving people an opportunity. I've spotted something you did today. It was amazing. I just wanted to point it out. I spotted something you did today. I was curious why you did it that way. I spotted something you did today. I don't think that's going to have the effect that you want. Can we talk about it? It's energy expensive, but if you want to be amazing, that's what you do.
We've talked, a lot of the things that we talked about have come through, as I say, The Promise of Giants. But you've got a new book out, which everyone in the room has got a copy of. It's an advanced
copy.
Whether
you like it or not.
It's not it's not due out for a couple of weeks. But can we just finish the last, and then I probably going to ask the audience if they've got some questions, and some of them may be up late at night reading your book, but I guess not.
I don't think up late last night. From what I heard earlier, last night was not about reading my book. Yeah.
So what is the secret, and I think you obviously bring this out through the book, what's the secret of becoming a good leader?
Changing your definition of it. Changing your definition of it. Good leaders, I think there's an idea in our head, if we think of good leaders, where we think it's this singular person, slightly ahead and in front, both in terms of their capacity and their intellect and everything else, of a cadre of people who line up behind them. And instead, reconsider leadership in the context of the enablement of followers. So it's not a leader with a line of people behind them. It is a leader with people, some behind, some who step up and be beside, and in moments of contextual importance, and where their expertise or energy is greater, they step in front with no kind of jealousy or other challenges from the leader. It's this rotation of people around the leader that both protects and has that gestalt effect. That's one thing. The other thing is to recognize that you don't have to lead like that person. And I don't know who that person is in your head. You don't have to lead like him, and invariably it's a him. You don't have to lead like him. You don't have to be that person. You don't have to change your accent. You shouldn't have to change your name. You don't have to lead like that person. You can look at your qualities, the things that make you brilliant, and make that the center of gravity around your leadership. People will be grateful for it. You can remember that we live in a world where everybody is told, where increasingly we are told, for convenience of greater powers, that you are impotent, that nothing you do really matters. And I would tell you that the best thing you should know as a leader is that everybody is always watching you. You are always being observed. People are always learning leadership lessons from you. What lessons are they learning as they watch you when you don't know you're being observed? You are disproportionately powerful people. It's convenient to look here and say, well, he's bigger than me in the context of power, or somebody else here is bigger than... But it's not. The people around you, you are giants, disproportionately powerful, and everything you do matters. You will have an interaction with somebody today, tomorrow, when you get back to your office. You'll have an interaction with somebody that is objectively meaningless to you, forgettable. And you will have no concept that that thing, that interaction, as small as it is, remembering the name of a new colleague, pronouncing the name of a colleague right, something tiny that for you is nothing, will be like a footprint in wet cement for that individual. It will be indelible. It will be something that they build on, whether it's positive or negative. My colleague, former colleague, she's gone off now to do civil service, poached her. But she said that I should always tell leaders whenever I talk to them this quote, so I'm telling you. And that's the idea that your direct reports' children will know your name. Your direct reports' children will know your name. Their loved ones, their partners, their children will know you as the person who makes them feel small and stupid and insignificant and incapable, perhaps worse still, invisible. Or they'll know you as the person who challenges and supports them in equal measure, who pushes them to deliver on their potential, who enables them in the best possible way and allows them to be thriving and even happy. That's the brilliant thing about leadership. It's not just all the tough stuff. It's the fact that we have more impact on the mental health of our colleagues than their GP, their partner, or their psychologist. It's the fact that we have more impact on their happiness at home than anyone else in their lives. What a cool responsibility.
That's awesome, John. What a great answer. 2 minutes, we're going to come to you, so have a think if you've got any questions. But I just want to finish on some really short, quick-fire questions with some quick-fire answers.
I need to shorten up my answer.
Okay. So that's just a hint, John. We've got our own bookshop, as you know, the House of Books.
Yes.
All the profits go to fighting social isolation and loneliness. What book has influenced you the most?
This is not highbrow. The NeverEnding Story. I read that book. I don't know if this is true, but it always feels true to me that if you grew up in Stockport, it was mandatory that your holidays were either in Prestatyn or Rill, and the Rill Sun Centre, right? It was cool. And we didn't have it, but we borrowed a neighbor's caravan in the summertime. Invariably, it would be pissing it down, and we'd be allowed to read books. But after bedtime, we put the books away, and I got this book, started reading it during the day, and then at night, I was like, I can't put this down. And the caravan door bowed a little bit, and so a shaft of light would come in to the bunk beds, and I was sat with the book like this, leaning off the edge of the top bunk bed, reading the NeverEnding Story. And I loved it because of the idea that there's this insignificant kid, the target for every bully around, invisible even, apparently, to the people who loved him, who thought he could have no impact on the world whatsoever, who reads a book and discovers that he's the protagonist. He's the main character. And if that fantastical place is to be saved, the only person who can do it is him. And I just thought that was a beautiful metaphor for perhaps many of us who wonder if we have a place or a value in the big scheme of things.
Good. Follow that, guys. Who would you say has influenced you the most?
My mum.
Yeah, I thought you'd say that. So that's a quick one. What is?
Yeah, I did say short answers. Sorry.
What is? Well, just tell me why. Why? I mean, we've talked about it, but just give us your understanding why she influenced you the most.
Because there are some people you meet in this world who, when they look at you, it is like those moments, like a winter's day when it's high pressure, cold, blue sky, but freezing, and you kind of close your eyes and you look towards the sun, and it's like your whole brain is illuminated. That's what talking to my mum was like.
Brilliant. What's the quote that you most turn to?
Again, this is one from my mum, which was the idea that she gave me this quote about becoming extraordinary. The most unlikely of people in the most improbable of circumstances can become extraordinary. It wasn't one of those ridiculous manifesting ideas, but the idea that even if you're unlikely, even if your circumstances make it improbable, you can still do something extraordinary, with a big asterisk of if you're willing to plan and work at it. But I love that.
Okay. What's the best advice you'd give to someone setting out today?
Know whose words matter and in what context. Some people's words in certain contexts, your boss at work, your client in the work context, they have to be foundational, substantial bricks that you must build with. But their insights about you and their words to you outside of that context are like feathers. And as many of them as can fall on you as you like, you can blow them away. It's a really helpful thing. If you're ever on social media, especially Twitter, you just need to remember that person, Adam 427961A, his words are feathers. And it doesn't matter what kinds of words you use. They're immaterial and no use for anything other than stuffing your cushions.
And finally, John, from me, what makes you laugh?
Oh, yeah, I'm incredibly juvenile in that respect. So I watch a lot of cartoons. I loved them back in the day, Thundercats and stuff like that. I think it was the Athletic Bodies and Tights, but I don't know. But I loved that back in the day, and I still do. I love cartoons. There is, I don't know, we work with a lot of studios now, humble brag. And so, things like Steven Universe, I don't know if you've been forced to see this because of your kids or something. It's really, really clever and fun, and it'll make you laugh and give you a little bit of hope. There are remarkable things out there that are very clearly, whilst marketed for kids, it's designed for the adults who are watching in the background.
Right, my work is done. So over to you guys. We're gonna wait till the microphone coming to you. Just hang on.
Right there. Oh no, God. Cardi, yes. Sorry, I'll definitely come to you. It's just, he was quick. No pressure.
John, I've just finished 9 years as a university governor, and it just strikes me that the young generation are so anxious. Compared to my days as a university student where we're full of hope, the students that I've spoken to are full of anxiety about their debt when they leave university, whether they will get a job, state of the world, and so on. I think it's exacerbated by social media. Because we are people who are, because of our profession, we give advice and we're looked up to and listened to, what message can we give to that younger generation to encourage them not to be so anxious and to be more hopeful about the future?
The only legitimate thing we can do is to reduce the source of their anxiety. Because otherwise, when a room is filling with smoke and you can see the building next to you burning, to tell that person, oh, don't worry, let's just have some pancakes. It feels patronizing, even though we're trying to help them. So we can help them build strategies for coping. We can help them recognize that we see their potential. These are important facets. But fundamentally, if you follow the rules, if we followed the rules in our time, there was a reward there that was tangible and, give or take, accessible. That's not true now. Are you really going to buy a house if you were born in Oxford or London or Manchester? Are you going to buy a house? Or are you going to be in one of those rent share, partial ownership jobbies at best? Is your job guaranteed? I mean, I was with lawyers, a legal firm yesterday, that clients of ours in Paris, and there was a big conversation about AI, and I wasn't sure if they even liked their associates. Well, I wasn't sure just by listening. And so imagine knowing that that's what you're going into, because they're talking to people who are graduates and associates in law firms now. But imagine knowing that this thing that you thought would get you respected and put you on a track to partnership and whatever else is now not. Yeah, anxiety would flourish for me. So we can do some stuff to help them cope. We can do some things and think about who we elect and the policies that we advance, even if they might be hard for us. You know, I'm as enamored as you are by 5% tax. But there are consequences to that for the society we'd hope to build. All right, I need shorter answers, sorry. Oh, you're going to get a workout right now.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really inspiring. I have, before I became a lawyer, a sports career of 15 years.
Wow.
As an athlete and as a coach. Can you give us a short description how your sports career has impacted your life? And the second question, when did you touch a basketball last time?
Oh, the second one is easier. It was probably 15 years ago, the last time I touched a basketball. It's not. I have some basketballs in the bottom of my cupboard, and I did. They're ones with signatures on them, and I did, as I was rooting around trying to find something about a week ago, I did touch one then. But in the context of the game, I haven't. What did sport teach me? That being treated as a commodity sucks. Knowing that you are tradable, and that the favor of people who ostensibly love you can shift like the wind. I had 6 games in a row where I scored my career best. Now, bearing in mind when it started, that was about 8 points. But it was better at the end, right? So 8, and then 15, and then 18, then 20, then 25, and then 27. And then the next game, we lost, and I had 18. And the criticism was vociferous. And it was like, have you been watching my track record? You know, if I was a stock, you'd still be pretty happy. And I think that's something to remember for us in our workplaces too. Human beings do not thrive when treated as widgets.
Helen's giving me the eyes, so I think we can do one.
I've talked too long.
I think we can do one more question, Helen, yeah?
Go to the back, go to the back. This way you get your steps in too.
Hello. So I am. I have all the things you said. Women, accent, not white, and an immigrant. So I would like you to say a little bit about all these minorities and all the bias that comes with this, because it's not easy to be in all the minorities and still trying to thrive.
Yes, it is not. So I'll say this in two parts. One, I know that if you are a straight white man, it might seem that what I'm saying is that you're terrible. I know that some unsophisticated people who are trying to be good in equality say that, but it's not the reality. Diversity is not more interesting. It's not like there's queer people and people with disabilities and immigrants, and then there's white men over here. Diversity is everybody. But if you don't recognize that as a man, there are huge advantages in this world that are implicit. You are assumed to be a leader when you walk in the room, especially as a slightly older man, whereas a woman who's slightly older can be assumed to be past it. A younger one can be assumed to be, where's the coffee? I don't know how many of you as men have ever considered when you walk out of a building, especially now we're coming back into winter, and it's dark, and you pop your headphones in to ignore the horrible world out. Have you ever considered why so many of your women colleagues don't? Why they wear one earbud or none? And it's because women know something that men fail to understand, which is that they are prey in this society we've built. It's not fair and it's not right. And it's not that men never get targeted or harassed or violence committed against them, but the predominance is the other way around, and we know it. Have you ever considered how many of you have been stopped and searched lately? Once a year for me. The last time I was in a suit, I don't wear a suit very often, in a 3-piece suit with my grandfather's gold fob watch. I was carrying a very expensive case and a custom umbrella. And this man who is, 12 he looked, and then held me by the arm and said, "You resemble a description." I'm 6'9", wearing a 3-piece suit and a gold fob watch. I mean, what crime did I commit? That is white-collar crime at its best right there, right? I didn't just rob a convenience store. And that's not the experience for many of you. It's just worth remembering that the world does not value everyone equally, and just because you do doesn't change that. And for those of you who found yourself somewhat corroded by the way the world looks at you, I understand. I know that I'm a monster. Not here in front of you now that you've heard me talk, but when I leave this place, when I walk on the street, I watch as women cross the road and men put their hand on their jacket pocket to cover their wallet. I watch as people move out of tube carriages late at night when it's just me and them, jump out at a stop and move to the next one. I know I'm a monster, and I've known since I was 7 years old that I'm a monster. The thing I would say to you is that we have to remember the people who look at us differently. We have to remember those times explicitly when I was sat in the caravan with my mum. And she showed me that I was her clever boy. That's what you've got to remember. You aren't the reflection of other people's bias. You are your own person. Find the people who see it.
think
Thank
you
you.
can clearly see, John, the love for you in the room. And I think you can see how you've moved so many people. What we all need to do, guys, is not just think this was an amazing 45 minutes, an hour, but really need to reflect on it and go away and learn from it. And that's when you pay John the respect that he deserves. Thank you all. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Did that move you as much as it did the audience? There was hardly a dry eye in the house. Even more importantly, the messages John left us with. Being a leader is a privilege. We need to be aware of our behaviours, aware of our biases, and we need to think carefully about our actions, our words, and how we inspire others. We want them to follow. If they don't follow, you're just going for a walk. But we want to ensure that we are setting the right examples, and then we need to look to ourselves and our daily behaviours. I hope you enjoyed this inspiring leadership podcast as much as I did. Listen to it again and you'll get even more from it. Why invent pastry when we can use our grandmother's recipes? If you're a mum or a dad, John's mum sets the bar for us all.